let me double check something real fast. Let me double check. Don't you know we gotta go nice and slow? Okay. Gotcha. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Peace, everybody. Peace, peace, peace. Hope everybody have an amazing day. Let me cut my lights up a little bit more. Hold on. I have to reset it all the time. It go all the way down for some strange reason. Then I have to reset it. There we go. What happened? Let me see something. Let me check something. All right, there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Peace, peace, peace. To all my brothers and sisters, just give me a second. I'm getting everything set up, getting my tea and all my Lotus tea, so give me 1 second. Peace to everybody. Peace, love, and light. Peace, love, and light. Peace, love, and light to everybody. If you're here to learn, you're more than welcome if you're here to learn. If you're here to be a distraction, we just gonna block you. There ain't no argument. We're not gonna go back and forth with no one. Just gonna block you. Peace, peace, peace. Miss Alvarez. Peace. Mary Jane. I'm in love with Mary Jane. She is my main thing. Peace, Mary Jane. Peace, love, and light to everyone. I was thinking about coming from a perspective today. Let me see, can I find something in my files? I might share it with y'all. Let's see. Oh, 1 second, 1 second. Yep, I got it, I got it. Share something with y'all real fast. Gonna share a little bit of this science. Remember I said all animal figures are nothing but pious hieroglyphs. All so-called animal figures, scary figures, are nothing but pious hieroglyphs. Pious hieroglyphs. So do we know what we're looking at? Or do anybody know what they're looking at when I show this pictorial right here? Do anybody know the scribe? Oops, I'm sorry. That's being written on the scribe and what that scribe represent? Do anyone know? We're gonna break that down today. Just a tittle, just to give you some enlightenment. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. So I always like to wait for a minute for people can log in, and so my brothers and sisters can log in on my other platforms. So with that being said, I want to say peace. I want to say love. I want to say light. I want to say illumination. And truth has no sides. If you're a scholar or educator, you shouldn't diss nothing. You should be here to learn. If you've never been to lectures and things, when we discuss specific topics and we give you the history to look at things, for you to have eyes to see, then you would know. And that goes for a lot of my professors and college professors, because I've been in academia. I know it's a such thing as a reading list. I know it's a such thing as program learning and program reading, or the reading list in academia, where they give our students a certain type of Eurocentric and Negrocentric history, and then we believe it, like that 1619 bullcrap. Like when I tell everybody before we start, look up in the 16, no, what is it? What dictionary is that? What dictionary is that? I want to give you the specific dictionary. But when you look up American, it's going to tell you the copper color races found here by the Europeans. We are the copper colored races. Found here, already here, because you native to the land. This is scholarship. This is history. Research the definition of an American. And I bet you see American is the copper colored races. We are the copper colored races. In the beginning, yes, the world is dark. It's no disrespect. Anybody from academia, if you have a real history degree in first century, and even if you're a real biblical scholar, you can speak from this perspective. Just like I say, I'm not religious, I'm not Orthodox, I'm Sufi. I know the history and the origin of both of these religions, and I can come from the historical perspective where say neither one side can explain nothing of these figures that's supposed to be historical. These is facts, and a lot of stuff we take be Eurocentric propaganda, like Flavius Josephus or the Pisos family. All that stuff is made up. I lecture this in academia. So when I talk to my brothers and sisters from a perspective of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, when I say we have the right to tell people who we are, that's the laws. And when I deal with religious perspectives, when I say law governs all events, why would you want to arbitrarily explain these things that you can stand on, and you let other people that may dressed up look like me with a turban or a black fez on say some of the outlandish stuff and you fall for it? That's all I ask my brothers and sisters when I come from these perspectives, because what's not common to us as a people is wisdom and knowledge. And my people are lost due to a lack of knowledge. Why? Because we refuse to learn. Refuse is what? A tool in the toolbox, just like accepting. So we refuse knowledge. We refuse wisdom. That's a sin. When it's right in our face. When I say what I'm bringing you is not common, it's common to others. When I speak about these things, when I speak about Freemasonry, and when I talk about my Scottish Rite Masons, and I tell you that they sons of Muslims, I never met one European Mason that called themselves some goofy widow son like these Prince Hall Masons do. And then I ask them, explain to me why you're a widow son. The stuff is some of the most outlandish stuff you will hear out your mouth or out their mouth. And then they'll try to explain it, and it's no sense. These is facts, man. These is facts. So when I come from perspectives and come from different tools in the toolbox, something that's not common for us, something that's used in other groups of people and ethnicities use these things for power. This is what I'm delivering to y'all when I'm saying this is real. Like when we talk about we were the first this and the first that, when I talk about Timbuktu and Salamanca and the universities, when I talk about stolen legacy, when all Greek history is nothing but watered down Egyptian history, and when I can come from European writers like Gerald Massey and Godfrey Higgins and Albert Churchward and David McRitchie, Bertram Thomas, all these writers that told you exactly what it was, and even in the One World Tartarians, and I forget the doctor that authored the One World Tartarians. Everything that I speak on, all this literature, I offer to people for pennies of a dollar. And you can go on Amazon and see how much a lot of this stuff I'll be offering to my brothers and sisters. And it baffles me. And once again, I say, this is what our people is stuck under. We lost due to the lack of knowledge because we refuse to learn. We say something is hidden. And I say, how is something hidden? Nothing is hidden. We just not been introduced to it. Because everything that you think is new has already been written, has already been discovered. I promise you this. When I speak on, I tell everybody I'm transparent. A certain selective group of people is not looking for no street Negroes. So we can cut that out. Most people learn off the internet or follow some conscious group. They didn't put the work in and challenge academia. I'm part of the Philosophical Research Society. I'm part of a different Gnostic groups. When I was getting my dual master's degree at GCU, most of my professors were potentates. Jewish priests had they temples out in Arizona. And so when I was going through my academic endeavors, getting my dual master's degree at GCU, I was introduced to a lot. I was introduced to the doctoral library. I was introduced to Harvard and Cambridge and Oxford libraries. I tell everybody, I say, I love knowledge, I love wisdom. If you talk about Edgar Cayce, if you talk about Neville Goddard, all those European writers will tell you where they got their wisdom from. With all love and respect. Even Manly P. Hall. At the Philosophical Research Society, it's a whole section dedicated to Manly P. Hall. And at that at the institution, the library is filled with a plethora of wisdom. You know? And so I'm always transparent. I say, well, yeah, I'm a member of the Philosophical Research Society. I have my own charter. Everything I do, I bring it back to my people. There's nothing secret. There's nothing sacred with me. I can get a Scottish Rite Mason potentate and can sit right next to me, and I promise you, he'll agree with me. If you don't believe me, go on my page or go on YouTube and see them giving credit to Noble Drew Ali on his 135th birthday. So when I speak of things on a plethora of topics because why? I've been introduced to it. I bring things back to my people and share it. When I tell people I don't charge for nothing, I always ask for a suggested donation. Me and the Empress were talking, and I always talk in the spirit. And if you don't know the words that are coming out of my mouth, if I'm operating from love and you operate from love, you should be able to ask love a question. And love should be able to come back in love and make you say, because I'm speaking in a love language. And if you're not speaking in a love language, sometimes you know what I mean? Things may need to be repeated. That's why we study, to show ourselves approved, and we don't assume. I tell everybody, every time I speak, if I say no, if I say yes, I'm always speaking in the spirit. At all times. So when I promulgate things, when I give lessons, If it's going to be on Moorish history, if it's going to be on world history, if it's going to be on doing things in a proper manifestation, I have to be righteous in my doings. I have to be sincere. And if I'm sincerely wrong, I have to get on here and say, you know what, I was wrong, y'all. Because I can't lead nobody in to burn the house. And now when I talk about academia and history, you can't arbitrarily explain it, right? So when we start talking about, so when I start talking to people about words like Negro, Black, and Colored, and African American, when I start talking about the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, when I start talking about manumissions, when I start talking about the Declaration of Human Rights, Article 15, when I start talking about the House Joint Resolution 75, when I talk about the religious rights of the indigenous people, when I explain that the Dred Scott Law was never abolished, Negro, Black, or colored, no matter free nor slave, would never have no rights. So when we was written in the chattel as persons, that was just a form of ownership being changed. And so when I throw a trump card out on people per se, I say, okay, man, I'm not here trying to convert you to no religion, because I tell you again, I'm not Orthodox. I understand all the religious rights. I don't operate with nothing outside of myself. So if that's the case, when I'm speaking on some things that we should agree on as a people, I'm saying who we are as a people currently today on paper. That should be simple. Because how can you explain that you a misnomer Negro, Black, or colored, or African American, and all of are synonymous to slaves? You can't explain that to no one in a court of law with a straight face and think you're going to get some reparations or some restoration or whatever, some type of financial pay. That's never going to happen. It's a book by a European scholar called The Negro Abyss. I challenge everybody to read it. If you can't get it, I'll give it to you for free. I'll send it to your email. I have a full library. I'll give it to you for free. I'll build your whole library from every subject, from every topic. I'll build your whole library the same way I do in academia, the same way I do with students. I'm not biased. I don't let who I am mess up my gift for other people, you know? I never do that because this is not common with our people. Like most of our people, they don't go to real lectures per se. We may have watched on YouTube. You may have watched Sheikh Anta Diop or Ivan Van Sertima or Dr. Ben or John Henry Clark. You see them on, if you ever heard of Tony Brown, back in the day, Tony Brown's journals. And they had all our scholars on there sitting panels and lecturing. They was at University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. Dr. Ben was there lecturing. And a lot of the things they talk about, I said, I can't rewrite nothing. I can just make it plain. And then I can go back and then add on to the science. Why? Because I'm here in the flesh. And then I can give it to you to say, wait a minute. From a historical perspective and from origin perspective, because what people believe in, I can't dispute that, because right under the word belief, you have a word called balai, believing in things that you can't prove. So people believe in a rock. People believe in a lucky rabbit's foot. People believe in certain things outside the body. And when I say, well, it's all in me. And when they say, what you mean? I say, all the things are in me. Everything that's made outside is just things made by man. So when people say, man, something is hidden and something is new, no, it's not, brothers and sisters. It's nothing is new. And I try to tell people as I get into my main topic, when we talk about spirits and things, because I want to be clear with this because I always like to give a little subtopics and stuff. But when you play with the spirits per se, and I'm telling people, I've seen it with my eyes when you play with what? The illegal, the Santeria, the Orisha, even if you playing with terrorists. If you don't know the same type of voodoo or hoodoo, whatever vernacular you want to use, to get yourself back in those situations, a lot of the things that you think positive, you can conjure up the negative aspect of the jinn. And when I tell people this, they be like, "What you mean?" I said, "Brother, sister, I see everything in everyone's eye, and mine as well." So if I'm operating in a manifestation of righteousness, I recognize righteousness. Come on. It's just like if I came from my other discipline, my IDMR teachings, and when I show y'all the spiritualness of alcoholism, you know, and I show the metaphysics of alcoholism, you know, because everything I speak on, I show you the inner meaning of these things. It's always an inner meaning. You know, it's always a power source. I'm telling you, it's always. And when that hieroglyphic, when I showed people, I said, "What did you see in the medical on the medical truck? What do you see going up the chalice?" So then when you look at the so-called Baphomet, with one hand up and one hand down, which is cold Volta, when you look at the animal head and the female body, and I just showed you that in the hieroglyphics, what do you think you're looking at? And I already told you in another discipline, Baphomet is what? Written how? If you follow it, Baphomet is written how? Watch this. Baphomet is written how? I'm going to lecture this later at another date as well. When I said I done this on the college campus, Baphomet is written in what type of style when you a Gnostic? Do anybody know? If you know, say yes. If you don't know, say no, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see if the average man know. Let's see if the average man know. Because the first thing the average man do, and I've seen brothers that do it in the conscious community, they'll throw that figure at you and say it's something scary. "Oh, and see this. I said, "Oh man, po little tink tink." And I said, when I tell you about the Knight Templars and the assassins, but once again, how is the Baphomet written when you were Gnostic? They'll say, "Man, I don't know." And I say, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's written Kabbalistically. It's Kabbalistically. Absolutely, Empress. When they say, "What you mean?" it's written Kabbalistically. Temp, Ho, Abs, Abba. The temple of David in man. Remember I tell you, we talk about a bloodline. We talk about a particular lineage. And when I show you signs and symbols, certain things is only for the elite. Like num diplomas, like code names and all this stuff. I'm telling you. Just like you hear a Negro and say Africa was named after a European, and I already destroyed that. Well, I don't like to use the word destroy, illuminated that on the college campus when there was a video document out and the individual was talking about Africa was named after a European. And I said, that's Negro-centric propaganda. You know? So, once again, I said, I showed that the Baphomet is written Kabbalistically. That's a form of Gnostic understanding. Like Eliseus Levi didn't come up with nothing. I tell y'all, I say Eliseus Levi was nothing but a transcriber. A transcriber. When you research what a transcriber consists of, then you'll be like, "Oh," and then I start showing you. Just like another European named Zachariah Stitchin that wrote all that Anunnaki pseudo stuff. That's pseudo. He couldn't read no tablets. How I know? I'm telling you scholarship. You can believe what you think. And that's how they always get us caught up with some aliens. I said, aliens? I said, that's the thing they always get it with. No, from aliens. Ain't no aliens did nothing. The Anunnaki, the Iberian. I show you they have goddamn hair. They have a tunic, cotton or silk, with the sash on, with the sandals, with the damn scimitar and their sash, with a beard, with braids. It's pictorials of things inside and people not catching it. And, so, and then they start throwing all this mystery stuff. We digressed. And so when a lot of things I'll be talking about biblically and when it's connected to certain herbs and things, I say, listen, man, you have no idea. When I give text, when I come from a perspective, like when I talk about, yesterday I was talking about a tool like the Tantra. And then today I can come from the cannabis crucifixion per se, at the place of the skull. And you can research Matthew 27:33, Mark 15:22, John 19:17. And I've done this for a lot of my Rastafari, for my brothers that love Haile Selassie. I say, man, I come from scholarship and wisdom. I'm not coming from nothing else. I understand all that because I have a lot of the publications. You know, from the Lion of Judah Society, of His Imperial Majesty, of the Gospel of Haile Selassie I, or Haile Selassie I, based upon the book of the Seven Seals revealed, as the Haile Selassie first revised, the Aramaic Bible, and known officially as the 1961 AD authorized Amharic Bible of the Imperial Realm of the Conjuring Lion of the tribe of Judah, him Haile Selassie I, elected of God, and King of Kings, or Emperor of Ethiopia. We have composed, written, and compiled many books, documentary evidence, and other works in demonstration of our faith in God and His Christ revealed in the true light of the revelation of Rastafari since 1991 AD. Previously, we had also composed and published several articles in the form of pamphlets, tracts, and various subject matters related to our divine heritage, ancient Ethiopian history and culture, and particularly reflecting and illuminating upon the Rastafarian school of thought and theology. In addition, we were one of the first faith-based Rastafarian and Ethiopian Hebrew brotherhoods to go to the roots of the matter in the Hebrew Torah, to reveal the roots of the cannabis matrix in order to expose, address, and seriously confront the truth behind the marijuana conspiracy, and give concrete aid, ministry, and religious assistance to the many throughout the continental United States of America, these Rastafarian brethren who have been, and many who still are being, criminalized, incarcerated for those things. And look what's happening today. It's a market on these things. But what I'm showing you is a precedent how things was written. But let me get to the closing. I want to speed it up. Okay, they say, likewise, unjustly, culturally ignorant, and biblically speaking, evil man-made laws, the political form of the mystery Babylon, Egro or Egro, the system of, this what they say, white supremacy of the modern Gentile world, dominion, and counterfeit Christianity in the end time of the church age. In the present volume, we would like to highlight and publish a trilogy of articles composed by another, and yet no other but a brother in spirit and in truth, he of whom I refer as anonymously self-styled Ionis, Johannes, the composer. He sent and signified it by his angel to his servant Ionis, aka John. And then he quote Revelations 1:1, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. But our Gnostic relationship as elected Rastafari to his brother aptly named Ionis is by the grace of Jah. So I'm gonna connect these things. So from the Greek root word, if you have a lexicon, what is spelled is gnosis, Gno-sis, found in the epistle of John. To Paul, to Timothy, in 1 Timothy 6:20, and defined in a strong concordance as a noun, and may further be linked to be linked and expounded upon elsewhere. So what I'm talking about is in this context, so Yahshua, they called, Jesus. I just want to give you for speaking points, the Christ relationship with John, the revelator per se, right? God the Father, known as Abba, gave the revelation to Adonai, aka Yahshua, and he sent it and signified it by his angel and to his servant Johannes, a name that literally translates as Jah's grace. I'm coming from this perspective. I'm giving credit to things. I'm lecturing on a specific topic. I'm going to tie some things together for you. Because see, when I travel and go places, I have a clear understanding of everything. And the word written in the Holy Bible testifies that we are saved by grace, the grace of Jah. I understand that. But then I understand it was never a J in the Hebrew dialect. So if we saying this Hebrew, this and that, I clearly understand. But if we dealing with scholarship and if we dealing with language and what we can say yes or no, and what we can agree to or disagree, but we shouldn't have no disagreement to this, we can clearly say it never was a J in a Hebrew dialect. So that can be a mistransliteration. I'll give you an analogy how you can give a mistransliteration. You say, oh, Jehovah, but it never was a J in the Hebrew dialect. So when you look at that Jehovah, you put the Y. That's Yahweh. That's Yahweh. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear. I can go further with that, but I want to stay in context. You know? But the word written in the Holy, it testifies to Jah. But theologically speaking, his majesty verifies this in his person, his word, and by his deed, for us to bear witness to him being truly Christ in his kingly character, Revelations 5:5. Now, this where I want to clear something up from a perspective of understanding. Just like, oh man, I can't forget the Messiah. For a lot of my Indian people, I forget the brother name. They have their Messiah. Everyone have their Messiah. Certain individuals have their Messiahs. You know, some of them, Haile Selassie may not be their Messiah to that group of people. Understand what I'm saying? Not discrediting what that person did for that group of people. Just like some people say, well, the Nation of Islam not real Muslims because they don't pray to Muhammad. And this. I say, well, if you want to deal with scholarship, I can show you that that's Fuji dust. Now, I'm gonna give you the same thing. If people look at, no matter what the things, we're not here. I'm not debating at this point. So let's stay in context. What Elijah Muhammad did, X, Y, Z, or what Farrakhan did, X, Y, Z. But I can see the work that those God men did, that these people call, and see the change just as much as anybody else, no matter how nobody want to look at that. You know? So I always tell people it's a deeper symbology of everything. So when we talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, the so-called 6-point star, right? And so I'll tell you to take them apart. And so you got one triangle, and then you got another triangle, right? So let's use the top triangle. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, God in the middle of that one. The one at the bottom, you got man, you got mind, spirit, man in the middle, body at the bottom. You put those together, what do you get? Remember, I was talking about this in the Tantra sex magic. Those two come together to do what? Tell you I can make this easy a child can understand. Come on, family. I can show you what the real 12 tribe of Israel is. I'm telling you. I just gave you the pictorial. Very simple. The symbolic Mia is like the symbology or the Ethiopic faith called Tohido, which we talk about the union of God and man and the Messiah and the Christ. Nothing outside ourselves. So when I say out there throw a trump card and say this, it's nothing else that we'll be here discussing. You know? Think about this. It's some things, man, that I know a lot of our brothers and sisters has been put under a spell, and we haven't been able to snap it because we still have gatekeepers that look like us. We like them so much. They be in our families. We follow them, and they keep us subjugated, and we wonder why. We wonder why. We wonder why. Like we deal with wisdom like the tree of knowledge of good and the so-called evil as an allegory for cannabis. Remember, I'm not here promoting anything. But I'll show you something to look at and be like, wait a minute. Because there's two sides to everything. Cannabis is the plant that God warned humans not to eat from in the Garden of Eden in Genesis. Well, was it Genesis 1? No, or yeah, Genesis 2, 16 and 11. 16 and 19, if I'm not mistaken. And the Lord God commanded the man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it, you will surely die. So a person will say, well, what's analogy? Okay, or why this analogy per se? Why was cannabis the tree of knowledge of good and evil and not the tree of life, for example? Well, in this context, God himself declares after the fall in Genesis 3 and 22, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil, and he must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the previous passage implies immediately that whatever it was, Adam and Eve, wherever they ate from per se, was not the tree of life. Why? For if it was, man would become, by the words of God, right, himself above, immortal, right, and live forever. And after eating from the plant, not only did not become immortal, he instead started to die, according to Genesis 3 and 19. Until you return to the ground. Until you return to the ground. Since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. Now, when somebody talk about some reincarnation and you're going to come back as an Autobot, and they be talking about they're a Christian and all this, I said, well, look, tell me what the Bible say. Just tell me. Don't tell me this. Well, what do I believe? I'm crazy. It don't matter what I believe. You say you're a Christian, well, tell me what your text say. Well, I think this. See, that's the problem. That's the problem. You're finna get everybody messed up what you think. You don't think nothing. That's your personal belief. Because that Bible you got in your hand is saying something different. I ain't say you finna go to no heaven and go and see Big Mama. With all due respect, when I tell people that stuff be fake, and then they go to church and all this, I said, man, come on. These is facts. For those that profess certain things. For those of us that's on another realm, you know what I'm saying. We're talking about those that profess something. And since there were only two important plants in the garden, which was the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life, and cannabis is one of the naturally important plants, cannabis must have been the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Stay in this context. Just stay in, don't get out of context, please. The underlining metaphor is that to those who are unaware of the more spiritual truth behind enlightenment, and to those bound by the material worldly system, cannabis is a dangerous plant because it causes mind alterations, which force the consumer to question the deep nature of the things via deep insights, including law, order, and the very foundations of the system itself. And when people question such things, usually anarchy occurs, and the later is far from desirable. And this is what I be telling y'all. This is what happened to these individuals. It's no peace, there's no light in them. All you gotta do is look. And so everything is a bad tool. It's like giving a child a straight razor. You won't give it to them, but when they're ready to use it, it can be a good tool. And while the connection is somewhat obvious, several people, including so-called Christians who study the Bible, usually do not acknowledge this principle. And this possibly stems from the fact that most people interpret literally God's warning as an explicit prohibition. This warning is the ancient Hebrews' effort to screen the unworthy ones from the profound insights that this plant provides. In this context, cannabis qualifies as a tree of knowledge of good and evil, and consuming it qualifies as a holy communion, precisely because it what? Inherently tied to the two key notions which are related to its consumption. One is choice. Stay with me, stay in context. Choice with regard to wanting to experience the truth and revelation of the truth. These two notions will be analyzed, as we go on, if I got time. But in this context, cannabis and choice with regard to union with the universal hippocampus or your mind, cannabis allows an individual mind to get a glimpse of the universal mind. In this sense, consumption of this plant carries with the inherent notion of a major choice. Exactly like in the movie That Matrix, that allegory. In a sense, people who have chosen to consume this plant, they have exercised what? Their freedom of choice by making this choice. Remember what I'm saying. This is a choice in order to experience this truth per se. Similar to how Neo chose the red pill. So for them, it's pretty much over, like in the Matrix. We are here to understand why we made this choice. And while intoxicated, several notions which otherwise inherent or difficult to understand became clarified. When I talk about the spirit molecule within the DMT, and some people have to take hallucinogenic drugs, all this tie in to what I'm saying, but I'm making a specific point with this choice. The clarification of such notions is so intense that one would tend to classify this plant as a revelatory and sacred plant, mainly because of its ability to expand the horizon of the mind when it's done in a right perspective. And the effects of its intoxication is reported to be subjective. By whatever the case may be, this plant seems to cause the mind to expand until it reaches this God essence per se. And this subjective feeling of reaching this, how can I say, blessedness or this nirvana type of feeling can be found exactly in the serpent's quote in the passage of Genesis chapter 3, verse 4. You will not surely die, the serpent said to the woman, for God, Yahweh, knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like Yahweh, God, knowing good and evil. And under this intoxication, the ego, or should we call it the seat of consciousness, wants to experience what it is like to be what? The created, to be God in this context. And this is, of course, a highly dangerous event, resembling like when we talking about a train on the wrong tracks. And the self, while intoxicated, gets drunk with the idea of this so-called Godhead and wants to linger in it as long as possible. Think about what I'm saying. Now you chasing. They call it chasing Jason per se. You know? But knowing good and evil to a certain extent becomes true under the influence of this plant. Plainly put it, the free association which takes place in one's mind while under this plant bear extreme resemblance to one subtly having a deep revelatory experience about the truth. It is exactly this truth which is spoken of in John 8:32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. When I talk about the memory problem and the degeneration of the Holy Communion into a rite, R-I-T-E, with wine, watch this. What a lot of my Christian brothers and sisters call the Holy Sacrament or the Eucharist is but a remote memory, a remnant of the rite that the very first enlightened ones remembered. This is related to the memory problem analyzed elsewhere. And unfortunately, because of this memory problem and because of other obvious reasons, the Holy Sacrament has degenerated into an entirely different practice, having nothing whatsoever to do with the true meaning of what a Holy Sacrament consists of. And it's only natural that modern churches have distanced themselves from this specific plant, since the awareness of this plant provides, eventually gives one insight, which goes contrary to established laws, religious, state, or otherwise. This plant causes the mind to be associated with a peaceful sensation of belonging to the entire universe. The obvious insight into how and why things work in our world. And this naturally opposes the purpose of the rich and powerful, including those who sit on top of these so-called churches per se. So it had to be outlawed because it promotes this very mindset. Stay in context, please. Therefore, most religious Christians and churches today have lost true meaning of the communion and have substituted it for some juice and a cracker. As a result, it appears no official churches hold the actual true teachings of Christianity. So when I talk about this specific context, when I talk about Christ as the cannabis experience, in this craft, in this context, in this dissertation, in a literal interpretation of Genesis, the Christ, the serpent, is the cannabis experience as an ideal. And the experience itself manifests initially as the serpent of wisdom, exactly as the one. The character manifests initially in the Matrix scenario, according to Morpheus, who when the Matrix was first made, had the ability to do what? Change the Matrix at will. Again, according to Morpheus, he was the one who freed the first one of us, right? And in the Gnostic dogma, the one who freed us from the bonds of God was what? The serpent of wisdom, right? Right, I know. And when you look at diagrams of the names of God from the Athanasius, Kirchers, Oppius, Augusticus, spelled like this. I want you to look it up because the picture is a little bit small, so you can look it up yourself. It's spelled Athanasius, Kirchers, Kirchers, Oedipus or Oedipus, Oedipus. Y'all got that? And it's another word. Aegyptiacus, 1652 to 54. And see what you get. And the names are all appended to what looks like a huge plant. And in the words of Yahshua Messiah, whatever name you want to use, himself in John 14:16, Yahshua answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Literally, no one can attain perfect understanding about the system unless one experience this particular instant, what I'm talking about, in this context. Think about it. Again, in terms of the biblical scripture, in John 6:46, no one has seen the Father except the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father. And literally, no one knows perfectly or can describe accurately the Father, the system, except this type of experience itself. And only this plant experience itself sees the Father directly. If you still in the same realm that I'm in. So what I'm saying, the so-called Christ is which allows man to come close to God. But in its context, from what we read and what we putting in the same pictorial, putting hand in hand, this plant experience is as well. And this plant experience is he, she, it, who has an overall view of things, metaphysically or spiritually. It is exactly this overall view of things, which is the root of the Greek word theos, Theos, and literally the overseer. It's also interesting that in Slack parlance, the THEOS literally reads like the operating system. In modern churches, for example, or if I give you an analogy, consider Christ to be one of the faces of God, according to John 1:1. In the beginning, what? Was the Word. And then what else it says? And the Word was with God. And what? The Word was God. And this is also the meaning of the enigmatic Flammarion woodcut by an unknown artist. It's referred to as the Flammarion or the Flammarion woodcut because its first documented appeared in page 163 of Camille Flammarion's Atmosphere, Meteorology, Popularity in Paris, 1888. And this is a work on meteorology for a general audience. And the woodcut depicts a man peering through the starry sky as if it were a curtain to look at the inner workings of the universe. And you can look this stuff up yourself. And the original caption below it under the picture reads, a medieval missionary tells that he has found the point where heaven and earth meet. Now, when you look at this pictorial, you will note that the wheel intersecting a wheel. You remember you hear that in the Bible, a wheel and a wheel. Listen to, if you're still in the science, where I'm at. On the upper left-hand corner in that picture, and compare it with Ezekiel 1:15. You're going to be able to put them on top of each other. And then when you look at the living creatures in that pictorial, you're going to see the wheel on the ground beside each creature with its faces. And this was the appearance and structure of the wheel. They sparkled like crystallite, and all four looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. As they move, they will go in any one of the four directions the creatures face, the wheel, right? The wheel did not turn about, and the creatures went. Their rims were high and awesome, and all four rims were full of the eyes around. The entire Bible seems to be the annals of the cannabis experience. And here's Moses at the Burning Bush by Nicholas Forman from a 1476 major commission from Rene I of Naples for the cathedral at Axen province, which shows the apparition in the burning bush as the Blessed Virgin in a bower of flaming roses. When you look at these pictorials, and when your close companions, you'd be like, it's a whole nother picture. I'm telling you, just like the picture of Michelangelo, when you see that pictorial, you don't know what that is. And I say it's two things. It's the woman's birth cycle, it's higher and lower. And it's the brain too. When I show you that, you'll be like, damn. And then I can show you all the symbology in that painting. And then I can show you the picture with the veil and everything, with the skull you hear in the Bible, the skull Galata trickling down. I can show you in all these pictorials to remove spookism. Remember in Exodus 3:2, there are the angels of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it didn't burn up. And when the author thinks it's clear to the insightful student that the burning bush was nothing but a metaphor for what? Burning cannabis, which allows communion with the angel and the Lord. Watch, I'm going to get to it, and it's in the hieroglyphics. I'm just going to give you a name, Sheshat. Sheshat. I mean, this can be like, this stuff is not hard. This is also the meaning of the wedding at Cana in John 2:1. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus, Yahushua, Yahshua, whatever you want to call it, with all due respect, mother was there. And Jesus, Yahshua, and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding, right? And in John 2:11, this is the first of his miracles, right? When Yahshua performed in Cana of Galilee, right? He thus revealed his glory, right? And his disciples put their faith in it, right? I'm just giving you the story. What is Cana? It's exactly what the reader suspects, a clever acronym for cannabosum or cannabons, CANEH-BOSM, or cannabis per se, the anointing oil of Moses. The first miracle of Yahshua is made at and with cannabis. The story is simple, an allegory of the wedding, aka the union of man and God with the help of the Christ, the cannabis. In this context, I'm talking to my Rastafarian brothers and sisters. Or whoever has ears to hear. The Old Testament prophesies prophesizes the return of the Messiah, the one. And the New Testament assigns this role to Yahshua of Nazareth as an incarnation of the Christ. And the experience goes back thousands of years. And the Bible literalists seem to have lost the true meaning of who Christ was. And today people belong to two groups, believers in Jesus, Yahshua, and non-believers. And the dichotomy that has resulted is a travesty because most churches have lost the true identity of who Christ is. In this context, they're afraid to speak about it. But Yahshua as the Christ, the cannabis experience incarnated. Watch this. Oh, we on good time, okay. There is one remaining crucial issue that the New Testament speaks clearly of the man, Jesus Christ. Whether Jesus was a historical person or not, that's what we're not talking about in this context. It's still debated between atheists and Christians, you know? Although references to Jesus, peace noble, by early secular historians are meager. References outside the Bible do exist. Those of Cornelia Tacitus, Suetonius, Pliny the Younger, and then, you know, the so-called Flavia Josephus, the Pisos family, you know? And if Jesus, Yahshua, the man existed, then there is obviously a strong connection between this man and this plant experience, this cannabis experience when I'm talking in this context. What's the connection? Jesus, Yahshua, was the only human who God, the Father, approved for the role of fulfilling the Masonic prophecy, right? In Matthew 17:5, remember? And a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, who I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." I'm just setting the precedent. Not telling you what to believe, but we're explaining, right? Right. And if Jesus, Yahshua, existed, he appears to have been a human who was consciously dwelling in an enlightened state, similar to the enlightenment that the cannabis experience itself provides. And the cannabis experience, no matter how strong, is always temporary. And any particular consumer cannot dwell in this experience more than a few hours. And here then, we have a human who is able to dwell in this enlightened state continuously. When I talk about activating your DMT or unloosing that Kundalini, when I talk about these are things that can be done. And when these things are being done, it's for enlightenment. It's not for escaping. Remember, everything is the double-edged blade. Don't get it twisted. And I'm giving you an analogy and a parable when I speak metaphysically and in the spirit. And I give you an analogy. The key property of the cannabis experience is temporary enlightenment. What this is then is that thing or man which who can dwell in continuously eternal enlightenment, but the very substance, cannabis, the plant itself. But how can this be? Jesus, Yahshua, was a man per se. Cannabis is a plant, you say. We are therefore witnessing a structural anomaly or singularity in the natural order of things and in the fabric of space and time. What I'm saying, brothers and sisters, the Christ, the cannabis experience, incarnates as a man, aka Jesus, Yahshua, who by virtue of his identity as the spirit of Jesus, Yahshua per se, and the Christ experience is able to stay continuously enlightened. John 1 and 14, and the word became flesh, and the man has dwelled upon us, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. I'm just giving you the precedent. We at a good place. We learn it. When I talk about in this context as Jesus or Yahshua the Messiah as the fundamental, a systemic anomaly, a singularity of the creation, and a structural singularity, it simply cannot be, yet it is. And this structural singularity is the grand architect's systematic anomaly. It is the point where everything meets, the first and the last, the reference point of all creation, the firstborn of God, Yahweh per se. Remember in John 1 and 3, through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. So please don't get caught up, because I'm coming from a whole nother perspective. I'm setting a precedent when I tell people I can show you everything in the Bible to where you think the Bible is some, I'll say it like this, white man book, where you don't have eyes to see. I can show you everything. I can show you law. I can show you everything in the biblical scriptures. I can show you landmass. I can show you every craft of spirituality of monotheism or unity in the biblical scriptures. I can show you landmass in the biblical scripture. You got your Bible. I don't care anyone you get, the King James version. Let's look at the maps on the front of them. I'll break down every one from no biasness. And we know this, and we know this truth. I want to get to something when I show people pictorials, especially for my mathematicians. When I show things like this, when I show things like this, and then I offer the wisdom for you. So no one can deny what you're saying, and no one can deny the mathematical function that requires study, and most always be mapped relative to the origin of the axis. And any fundamental operation that requires practical manifestation in our universe requires what? First, a reference to the mathematical coordinates, right? It must be a connection to the mathematical coordinates. Oh, hold on, I'm sorry. Let me get you back right. I don't know why. Oh, hold on. Let me get this right, I'm sorry. But it just be taking so much time with this one. I'll be in so many places. But it has like a certain mathematical equation. And it requires certain things. Oh, hold on. What do you say? I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know, brother. Hold on, y'all. I have no idea. Hold on. Sorry about that, y'all. I don't know. But these are mathematical equations that need to be relevant to things. And it's not a coincidence that Christians do this, you know? The cross at the symbols symbolize things. I can't get it to fix. I can't get it. I don't know. Hold on. I'm sorry, y'all. But all these things, man, how can I say, because I want to be polite, is written in a specific way that keeps us from all this stuff. Just like when I talk about the Kabbalah, just like when I talk about this experience from this perspective. Yep, I got you, Noble. No, it just wouldn't let me let you in. I'm sorry, it just wouldn't let me let you in, Noble. But it's a code, you know? And even the abuse of things, all this stuff, it can mess you up. But when I talk about these things, I tell everybody, look up Shashat. Look up that and look up the hieroglyphics. And I'm gonna give you part two, I'm gonna give you piece by piece to show you what's really going on. You'll be able to look at it with your eyes. You're gonna be like, man, piece by piece by piece. Because I don't want to give you too much at one time. You know? I'm gonna give you piece by piece. But I'm offering to give people the diagrams and the documents that I have so you can look at it yourself. You know? But I'm gonna stop right there. Like I said, I'm gonna be gone all this week, so maybe I'll get with y'all. Or I might jump on here and there to say hi to y'all as I'm doing what I'm doing over the weekend. But besides that, man, thank y'all for listening to me for that little bit of time. And like I said, man, I'm gonna share y'all this Shashat, what's in the hieroglyphics, what a lot of people are afraid to talk about and can't explain. And we're gonna break it down from a scientific explanation. Remember, S-E-S-H-A-T. S-E-S-H-A-T. And look for it in the hieroglyphs. You see, look for it in the hieroglyphics. And we're gonna break this down a little bit more as we indulge on this specific topic. Thank y'all for listening to me. I love y'all. Peace, light, and illumination. I love you.